Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, June the 21st, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And love having Joel back every week. I mean, I only get him once a week, and you only get him once a week. But, boy, they are the best once a weeks ever. So, Joel, hey, how you doing, guy? Good to have you.
I'm doing great, Walt. It's been an incredible week, and, summer officially arrives today. I think actually this morning, I believe it's 6:07 a.m. That's official summer.
Yeah, how about that?
So, the weather's supporting that concept, at least here in Central Virginia, so we're doing well.
So here in the Northern Hemisphere, this is what they call the longest day of the year because it's got the most daylight of any day throughout the year. Of course, down in the Southern Hemisphere, our friends down under, this is the shortest day of the year, but for us, it's the longest day of the year. And that's kind of fun because, I love it when you go out at 8 p.m. or after 8 p.m. and it's still light out. It's like, oh, this is great.
It really is, and it's something that it happens so gradually, and then you randomly realize, oh my goodness, it's the other day it was like 8:45, and it was still not light, but the sun was still, you could still see it peeking out over the horizon. It was like, wow, I mean, this is it gives you more time, and and obviously you have no more time in a 24-hour period, but you're acknowledging the daylight. It doesn't seem where summer is long, and you have winter where it's dark at 4:48 in the afternoon. It does feel different.
It does feel
psychological effect, I believe.
Oh, very big. Yeah. Well, it proves wintertime, especially the winter solstice, is the day that really proves how much resilience you have, because that, especially the closer you are to the poles, that's the day where you're getting the least amount of sunlight to work with. I mean, I can't imagine somebody who lives within the Arctic Circle or the Antarctic Circle. I mean, just the amount of daylight that you get in the extreme end of the year is so minimal that it's almost non-existent. I don't know how you live like that, but there are people who do that. And you're right, the effect must be really negatively powerful. I mean, it must have a really negative impact on you. So I appreciate the sunlight. I appreciate how much light we get during the day. I know you do too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, and it's just this time of year. I don't know the concept of this, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But I had I was thinking the other day, the summer has a different it's a different feel. It's a more light and friendly feel. The school's out. I mean, and again, my world is because I have a child in it. It does drastically change, and instead of 5:30 a.m., I have the leisure of sleeping to 6 or 6. I wish I did sleep to that late. Sometimes I get up pretty much anyway. But it doesn't feel as stressed. And again, it's simply a perspective of it all. But it is overall, you sort of feel like a little slower pace in the summer, which I think is a real positive for a lot of people.
Oh, it is for me. I certainly love it. I mean, I wish I could honestly say that the pace has slowed down for me. This week, actually, the pace has picked up. But overall, I mean, even when stuff starts going a little bit crazy, which it has for me this week, you step outside and it just calms you, I mean, because the weather's been, I don't know about in Virginia, but here in Connecticut and New England, the weather's been really, really nice. We had a couple of very warm days, but like yesterday, it was like in the mid-70s for most of the day. It was so idyllic. And boy, that just calms her right down. Yeah, it's just really fabulous. So
that's great. That's great.
Now, the topic we came up with today was about resilience, which is why I mentioned it. And with resilience, it came from a post that you put up that what did the post say? It was like a thing you shared. It said they tried to bury us, they didn't know we were seeds. And your comment on that was resilience, the ultimate superpower. But interesting concept. They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. In other words, what they thought they were doing was actually making us do what we do best, which is to grow.
Well, and what I related to that, I had, and this has been part of the journey that you've actually been involved with me on, is, at one point I was working for a residential treatment facility here in Central Virginia. That's how I ended up here. And I'd been there for 5 years when I left, and I had an abrupt ending to my employment, and it was something that at the time it was sort of, well, I describe it, like sort of a coup. We had one employee that sort of was, it had become my program, and I was using the law of attraction stuff, and it was very, and I built my staff based on that, and it was really effective, and really, really enjoying what I was doing, bringing the law of attraction to addiction medicine. And within that, what I thought was my right-hand person, somebody who was working really hard, was working hard to undermine me as well. And I didn't know it at the time. And it directly led to, this person set me up with again, with a confrontation with the owner. And I didn't know all this was going on behind the scenes. So I was unprepared. And, even though a side of me had wanted to leave and start my own practice, I never thought I would really do it because I was in such a quote unquote comfortable position there, making really good money. The program for the most part was what I wanted it to be. While I didn't have direct total control, I did have, I could direct the where it was going, even though this one employee was clearly trying to, divert things. So, when this fell apart, working there, I was shocked and excited on one level, but at the other, it's very normal when you lose a job, you leave a job, and there's a mental debate whether I left or it was almost simultaneous whether I was let go or left at the same time, because I truly don't remember the order, but it was simultaneously basically.
So it's not really clear whether they fired you or you fired them. It could have been either way.
Exactly. And I was fed up and ready to go anyway. So, but it did force me into this new position. So, afterward there were some, again, I don't like to focus on the negative. There were some derogatory statements made that weren't exactly accurate and attempting to make me look like a bad guy. And I'm fine with that. That happens a lot in employment, but this sort of goes where I was at. Well, this person who attempted to take me down, so to speak, actually launched me to the next level. And it really, I am so incredibly grateful for her betrayal, because it took that betrayal to put me in another position to move forward. And I actually wrote her an email, which clearly didn't get a response. And I can imagine it was the opposite effect of what her intent was. But this was, and I was very grateful for it. I mean that sincerely. A lot of people think I'm being facetious.
No.
Yeah. That event would not have led to me being in my own private practice. I would probably still be there. Again, that would have been an okay path, but my book would have never gotten written. Some of the opportunities I have now, we wouldn't be doing this show if I were still there. There's multiple things that take place that I wouldn't have in my life. Plus the fact that while it not just to financially do it, I'm doing better now, but not just that, but I have much more freedom and I get to dictate and develop my own programming. I get to go see which direction I want to take my career in. I'm not limited to any one thing. And I just love that feeling of being in control of all of this and being able to dictate my own path. And so in a sense, the attempt to bury me actually planted me in a place where I could grow and thrive. It's almost like, the concept of, I did a blog post many years ago on a blog that I don't even do anymore. And I called it, the interview of a fetus. And, it's a grabby title. And yeah. And it could go a million directions. Don't worry. We're going to a really good one here. It's the concept that if you could interview a fetus the day before it is born and ask, okay, you're in your nice comfort floating goo here. You don't even have to digest your own food. You're just comfortable. Life's perfect where you're at. Now, in about 24 hours, you're going to be forced through a very narrow canal. Mm-hmm. You're going to be exposed to what you'll perceive as freezing weather. And then some strange creature, you've never even seen another creature. Now you're going to see the strange creature is going to hold you upside by your legs and then spank you on your butt. Would you like, and then he said, now all that's going to happen. Would you like to do that? Well, the fetus could respond and be like, No, I think I'll hang out here. Well, the point of that story is, given the option, we will remain in our comfort zone or live, or, so the idea that we're planted into a situation with the intent of growing life, that becomes the main concept of what I'm trying to do. And this is where I merge the law of attraction, where you hear the old saying, stuff happens and how you respond to it is what matters. That's life. And that's where we touched on last week and the week before about traumatic events. Post-traumatic growth syndrome that I like to use is where you take events and you grow from them. And this is the perfect analogy. When life attempts to bury you, it's simply planting you in a place to grow if you choose to. Or you can remain. As humans, we get to view that, our perspective, and that's where the law of attraction comes in. I get to view my situation however I want. I had actually the mother of a Facebook friend asked to be my friend on Facebook. Well, I might want to say no, so I accepted her. And one of my posts was basically this, life is not what happens to you. It's all about your perspective. And she wrote, her comment was, as if, and I could have chose to debate it, and I let it go. And then there's been 2 or 3 more things where she would make sort of those comments. So instead of debating, trying to change her mind, I don't want to create I just decided to remove her as a friend. It's just, she's not somebody I want on my Facebook page, because that perspective and it is a real perspective. We see that as I'm a victim of everything, or I'm not responsible for all this, or I was planted by life. Life planted me in this place. Life put me here. Life put me and woke me up. And I love that. We get to choose. When you lose a job, when you lose a situation, when you lose a relationship, it's either the destruction of your life or to the beginning of that next chapter. And it isn't some random force that determines that. It's what happens. I know people with stage 4 liver cancer that have stage 4 liver cancer that were given death sentences by doctors that they describe it as the most awakening part of their life, and they turned it around. It forced them to turn things around in a positive way.
Wow.
And that's the exciting piece to me, is this concept is why I get up every day and love the law of attraction, because it gave me the power of perspective to dictate, am I planted or was I buried? And that's huge to me, Walt.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I have to give you credit for being able to translate the words as if into something intelligible, because when you said that, I said, what does that mean? But you knew what it meant, so I give you credit for that. That's the first thing I wanted to say. And second of all, I mean, yes, I agree completely. In fact, you really helped turn me around on this. I don't know if you remember, but in our earlier days of doing the podcast together on a regular basis, I expressed quite a bit of not disagreement, but just lack of comprehension about where the benefit is in struggle. And we had quite a few discussions and debates about that. And now I appreciate exactly what you're talking about there, because the struggle is important. I mean, it's not something that I aspire to. It's not like, geez, I really want to struggle today because I know I'll grow real well if I do that. That's not the way my day goes. But nevertheless, I recognize the value of it now. And indeed, when it comes to what's going on in my own life, I mean, I've been telling our listeners over the last couple of days with Wendy and with Cindy, just, various things going on that kind of have thrown me for a loop. I mean, yesterday I had an example where I think I told you somebody was, I had developers who were developing some software for Louise's gardening business. And they'd been working out for 2.5 months after saying it would take 30 days to complete. And then when they finally delivered it, it was the wrong product. It was for the wrong platform entirely. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. I mean, are we not speaking English? I don't understand. And the bottom line is that this morning, I got notification through the website. We were using Upwork, the Upwork freelancer website. And I got notification through Upwork that the freelancer had agreed to cancel the project and refund my money after 2.5 months working on it. And I'm speechless even now talking about that. I mean, if I were him and I had made as big of a blunder as he made, I would have found some way to make good on it. I would have found some way to at least, recover what I've already earned on it, or what I thought I earned on it by putting out the right product. His resulting answer was basically one of a victim. It's like he set himself up for victimhood, and I helped deliver it by saying, well, no, you delivered the wrong product. And so he said, yep, you're right, I'm a victim. So now the world is against me, and I'm going to give you your money back because that's what the right thing is to do. And look how terrible the world treated me. And I'm just flabbergasted by that. That was my word for the day yesterday, flabbergasted. And I'm still flabbergasted.
But that's the piece of all of this that, again, where we really have to start looking at things, and where at least I do, and I'll speak for me in my life. I get to choose daily. Am I a victim? Am I a victim, or am I going to benefit? And like you're talking about with the struggle and all. So when something like that happens, if I do something, first of all, I try never to put myself up to do something that would put me in that position. I see people all the time in business, and particularly the software development stuff. I've had website development stuff. I just find it fascinating that they try to take on so many projects. At least this is my perspective. They try to take on so many projects. They think they have the answer. When I was working for this addiction treatment company, we needed an electronic health records. And this one company comes in and says, we will develop it ground up specifically for addiction medicine. That excited me. And they had a great track record, a great reputation. And they were going to make a addiction specific electronic health record. That was big. And we were going to be their pilot program, so they could recommend, to other addictions, because that's such a growing field. And Walt, they came in, they took notes, and they did all these things. And I told them, I said, there's 10 things, I won't get into them. There's 10 things specifically I need in this. And I said, if the rest of the stuff is pretty simple for most doctors. And so they came in to do the training, and the lady sat down, and I said, okay. And after about an hour, I was like, look, we can skip all this. The 10 things I discussed, where are they at? I don't know what you're talking about. I said, and so she brought me a standard doctor's office electronic health record, which is a fine product. But I said, after all this time, we waited, I think it was like 6 months for them to quote unquote develop this product to match. And it was the exact same one that would, and finally, I said, we're going with someone else. And she sent us a bill for like $10,000 for their time, and I sent her a bill for $20,000 for our time.
Oh, I love it! What a great response!
And I said, I'll write off the $10,000 difference. Don't worry about it. And
you're so generous.
It was just that concept, though, that and again, not to try to get off on any negatives, but it is such a frustrating process when you're dealing with, especially when people are not in tune. And where I use the law of attraction, you may say, well, where are you going with all that with the law of attraction? Well, instead of me getting, it's so easy to get off in left field, and I can't believe you did this, or I can't believe, look, at that point, I just have to accept where we're at. It's time to go with another program. And we found someone that we were able to adapt what we were doing to their program. It worked absolutely fine. And it's something that it was a lesson to move on. But I'm more baffled, just like you're saying, of the immediate response, like this company, of, well, we spent all this time developing. I go, no, you didn't really develop anything. You just gave me the same product that's already developed, and you try to charge me money for that. No. And but it's that victim mode that, that so many people in business or in life fall into. And it's tough to deal with, especially when you're on the other side of it, of the law of attraction, seeing how destructive that is. And, it is very common. And I feel for you. It's something that has to drive you crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, on the other hand, a large portion of the discussions yesterday were about how I was responding to it. And I'm actually pretty proud of myself because I came through it really, really well. I mean, the worst words that I used to describe it were flabbergasted and bait and switch. That was it. I mean, there was no swearing, there was no screaming. There was a lot of gasping, like, what the hell just happened? But that was about it. And for the rest of the day, I was focused on, well, there's got to be a silver lining in here. And you know what? Maybe maybe it actually leads to a quick resolution. I would like that if it lead to a quick resolution. In fact, maybe a quick and easy resolution, one that actually takes a lot less effort than I think it's going to take at this point. Because from where I'm sitting, from what it would look like to me, it looks like a complete code rewrite. And maybe some of this can be saved. Maybe some of this can be reused, by the new developer. Maybe we can actually get this thing going. Because, I was expecting to launch the software with our company this week. And now I'm on delay. Well, I could easily fall into a negative spiral about that. And I didn't.
Sure.
I almost did. I came real close, but I didn't do it. And I'm so proud of myself for that.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and that becomes the point. That becomes... and I don't know where this goes. And at some point there will be something that you will say, maybe here's why. I've always, that's the piece that I love about all this. When I'm able to maintain the mindset that you're in and you can adapt it, when I'm able to do that, I find just amazing results down the road of why this made sense, or boy, well, thank goodness that happened. It's just one of, I've had just these chance meetings with people I was supposed to meet a guy this is a great example. I was supposed to meet a guy to work out with I belong to several gyms here in Richmond, and we were going to go work out, not at my normal gym, but I was going to go on the other side of town and meet him. Mm-hmm. So I get there and I get ready to ready to work out and get all my gear together. And I get a text from him and said, look, I'm tied up. I'm not coming.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, okay, well, no big deal. Drove across town. But give me so I basically, while there, I'm working out and I meet this gentleman and, we're just talking. He's probably about my age, maybe a little younger. And we're talking about weightlifting and general stuff. And he said, what do you do? He said, yeah, I've actually heard of you. And so we started talking a little bit about different concepts. And he said, look, I have a company. I really need I need to really adjust the culture in my company. Will you do some consulting for me? And I'm thinking, okay, well, sure. I don't, he's probably going to balk. My immediate thing was going to probably balk at what I'm going to charge him. Well, I go up and look him up. He has a pretty big company, and it turns into a really nice consulting contract for me.
Wow.
Now, all of that happened out of something that was originally as perceived by me as a negative. Yeah. I wouldn't have been there if I would have left and said, oh, well, screw this. I'll go. I'll worry about it. No, I just stayed and worked out, made a great contact. And he's very pleased with the result of the consulting we did. We worked really hard on the using law of attraction sort of within the business setting and just changing the culture of negative culture. And he's noticed productivity go up. So, he's now referred me to one of his friends who has another company of about equal size. And I want to be doing something starting in October with them.
Wow.
So one trip to the gym probably is going to net me an extra $20,000 this year.
And it's a trip where you got blown off.
Yeah. So was that a negative or was that a positive?
Yeah, on balance, it was definitely
clearly it's a positive.
Yeah.
But so you see the point. When and not everything. I don't want everybody in the audience to go, well, okay, well, and I'm not saying everything that happens like that has some major turn like that, but just being prepared to accept that or be able to see it, that helps so much.
We're talking about resilience here. That's the fundamental word of the topic today. And we're talking in terms of how we respond to what we initially perceive to be bad situations and turn them into, well, I'm not going to worry about it. How is that resilience? What makes that resilient?
Well, to me, the resilient piece is not being defeated by the circumstances of life. And when you do that, you allow the other side of life to happen. When everything you have is built on a negative, or everything you have is anticipating the negative, or I have been defeated by life, I'm going to give up, Or the resilience is no matter how bad this may seem, I'm going to get up, I'm going to show up, and I'm not going to give up. That's the key. I'm going to get busy every day and be relentless in my pursuit of what I'm after. That's what happens when you are resilient. Resilient is you are going to time and time again. Your perception may be you're going to be defeated, or this isn't going to work. I might as well give up in life, or I am not giving up. I'm coming back, and that life will not defeat me until my last breath is breath. However you say that. So I have my last breath. I will keep going, and that's when you have that mindset. You can't be defeated. It's impossible to defeat somebody with that mindset.
It's fascinating for you to use the word relentless today. Wendy used it the last couple of days. Cindy used it. I know David doesn't usually talk in abstractions like that, but if he did, he would use the word relentless because he's relentless. Tom, all of you guys, Tom's relentless. Everybody's relentless who I work with on this show. And it's very clear relentlessness is a major key factor in succeeding with applying the law of attraction. In other words, just refusing to give up. Absolutely refusing to give up under any circumstances.
My current book, why it all sort of comes together, it's sort of funny we're talking about this. I try to listen to at least a book on Audible every week, and I love doing that. It's great for my brain. My book this week is called, of all things, Relentless.
Is it really?
And it is about, yeah, it really is. It's about the guy who was Michael Jordan's trainer. And, he has a perspective of, Michael Jordan being relentless and how every game was, and that's why he was successful. And, there's parts of it that originally seemed sort of anti-law of attraction, but in reality, it's very relentlessness and resilience are the coexisting factors in the law of attraction that drive most people to success. When you really believe this and where you're able to keep going, when the law of attraction is in place in your life and you're utilizing it, it's easy to be relentless because this is part of the process. There isn't a day of defeat. It's just a day of learning. There's, like you and I've talked about, and not everybody gets this, and I get a lot of pushback from people, and I have no problem with it, pushback. But my definition of failure and struggle and all that other stuff, those are not negative words in my vocabulary. When people say, when you talk about failing or your failure, that's a negative. I said, no, I get to choose the interpretation of my words. Struggle to me is growth. And like you're saying, well, I don't get up every day and say, I'm looking forward to some struggle today. When struggle happens, my perspective turns to growth mode. And that's exciting. That's it. I don't view it. It's just like I get to choose I have a young man that wants to do public speaking, and he has a fear, ironically, a fear of speaking in front of crowds.
Of course.
But he's really driven to do that. And I always say this, and this helped me a lot early. When you view, like, for example, the anxiety of public speaking, the body manifests anxiety and excitement in the exact same way. When you measure that, the body can't tell the difference. Except your perspective of it. So when you replace your anxiety with excitement mentally, that it's the same physical response, but it's how you're perceiving it. And that's what's so exciting when you can do that. Again, perceived anxiety can also be flipped over to perceived excitement. And so that really helps him when he gets up in front of everybody and he starts off with, mentally he's saying, hey, I'm really excited to be here. Well, deep down he's saying, I'm really anxious about being here, but I'm looking at it differently. And it is a relief, and it does change things. Your definition of things is very important. The law of attraction helps me be able to define words as I choose. Like, for example, suffering and struggle to many people are used together, or they're the same thing. To me, they're polar opposites. Struggle is fighting hard, and no matter what, I am relentless in my pursuit. I will keep going. Suffering is being a victim of what most people would perceive. God, I'm having to work so hard at this, or this is not easy for me, and this always happens to me. That's suffering from something. Suffering and struggle are polar opposites in my definition, and I'm in charge of my definition. I'm in charge of my perspective. That's what the law of attraction gives me.
And it gives you also the opportunity to leverage itself, to leverage the law of attraction
Absolutely.
through your response. That's the whole point. Because what we're really trying to do here is to allow. I mean, Abraham tells us really clearly, we're all really, really good at asking. None of us on this planet have any difficulty asking for what it is that we want. We've got that step down pat. And many of us have pretty good belief in terms of, it coming through. Where we fall apart is on allowing it to come in. And Wendy and I were talking about this I think it was just yesterday and the day before, how little things. I mean, you mentioned, what was it you said? You said something about how you had initially got in contact with this guy by being in a gym across town through, happenstance. And your first impression was that he probably couldn't afford your services until you found out how big his company was. Well, Wendy and I were talking about how, I mean, she mentioned it this way. With her own practice, every time that somebody contacted her, her first reaction was, well, they probably can't afford me. And she finally realized she was setting herself up by saying every single time, well, they probably can't afford me. So she only got people who couldn't afford her. And I looked back on my own business and I said, oh, my God, I've been doing the same thing for years now. They can't afford me. And sure enough, they can't afford me. Like, what the hell?
And that. Well, and I know when I first started out, Walt, when I very first started out, that same concept of I was going to charge X number of dollars per hour, and I remember going, oh God, that's a lot of money. People, and that was a hard thing for me coming up with a dollar figure, because it was I don't want to give it away, but at the same time I don't want to scare people away, and I'm gonna be at this rate, and then we'll see where it goes. Well, it's my stuttering around or my stuff that I'm putting out there that like you're saying, it makes people say it's a lot of money. I have no problem with what my services cost now. I feel that if it's going to work for you, if it's going to be far worse. I had a gentleman told me the other day, part of the services which I offer is helping people in all areas of their life. And I help negotiate credit card debt down. It's whatever people are facing. I help with the IRS. In one session the other day with one gentleman, we negotiated $30,000 of credit card debt down to $6,000 with the credit card company.
Nice.
And he afterwards, and so he wrote me a check for my services. He goes, this doesn't really seem fair. He said, you just literally saved me all this money. And I said, well, we laughed about it. We moved on. But it's such again, all of this, Walt, is just what you're talking about. It's what your perception, it's what you're putting out there is. When I went to buy my Porsche, I don't know, 3 years ago, I loved buying at the Porsche dealership because they certainly have their own. They really have their own way of doing business. So I walked in, saw the vehicle I liked, and I saw the price on the window. I said, well, how much is it? What's your best deal? And he just points at the sticker. He goes, that's the price. I go, can you take any off? And he goes, no, that's the price. And I said, so is there any room for negotiation at all? He goes, look, he said, really nice man. He said, Mr. Elston, he said, there's two people sitting over there in the lobby. They're waiting to see this vehicle next. One of them will buy it if you don't.
Nice job.
And I said, sign me up. And so my negotiation skills were I'm like, well, I mean, it was just, again, he didn't mind asking for it. It's a ridiculous amount of money to spend on a car if you're just looking at it from spending on a car. It makes no sense. Or you can say, that's what I attract in my life. That's what I want. I was glad to be able to do it. I love that I have it. I just, for no other reason, I like, that's just one of the things I like. It's what I like to have. And so, but you get the point. They have no problem asking for it because they see the value in it. When you don't have value in yourself, or you're doubting, just like, Cindy was talking about, look, can they afford my services? No, they can't with that attitude. Or it's not even a thing. I've had I do a lot of Skype and phone work as well. And I've mentioned before that I think to you that I had a client from New York. She said, "You're really good at what you do, but can I give you some constructive advice?"
This, yeah.
I always appreciate it. Yeah. And she said, "You really need to go up on your rate."
Not what you hear every day, right?
Yeah. I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, because up in this area, you should be about double what you are. So she said, "I would, up here, people would think you're not worth it because you're not charging enough." She said, "You're as helpful as anybody I've ever worked with, but you need to go up in your rate." And I said, "Well, thank you." And it was such a unique perspective of how people view it. And that's I know a psychiatrist here in town that takes no insurance. He's really good at what he does. He spends an hour with each patient. That this is not my friend Dr. Masters. This is another gentleman, and he really is good. And his rates are very high. He takes no insurance, and he's full. He's full for the next 2 months because there's perceived value, and he has no problem charging that back. So that's life for us. Is all of this. The piece, how we bring this back to the topic, the thought resilience, the ability to value yourself and not give up where you're going or start the self-doubt. That's where you get killed. It's so easy have you ever had a great idea, Walt, and somebody says to you, "Oh, that's stupid," or "That won't work."
Yeah.
And then you immediately go, "Yeah, they're right. That won't work." And then 6 months later, somebody has the exact same idea. And they're making millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen. I've had thoughts like that.
I have too.
And we're easily shot down when we look at something. And I know when I went into private practice, I had a lot of my support network going, why don't you could go get another job at another treatment center. There's tons of people would hire you. I go, I don't want to do that. And it's going to be really hard to make it on your own. Most practices take a year before they become profitable. I go, I'm prepared to go a year if I need to. And it didn't take, I was profitable in 2 weeks.
Which was crazy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, again, I don't say this stuff with arrogance. I'm just saying, learning to understand yourself and learning to understand that this is the law of attraction. It's not arrogant to believe in yourself. It's not arrogant to see value in yourself. And so it's not arrogant to see when somebody tries to take you down, so to speak, or, they thought they planted you, but they didn't know we were seeds. They thought they destroyed you, but they launched you. They don't, when you fired Oprah Winfrey from her television show many, many years ago because she, for whatever reason you fired her for, you didn't bury Oprah Winfrey. You freed her. You gave her an incredible platform to change. Again, I know she gets some criticism, but I don't know of somebody that has had much more of an impact a long time ago. One of the saddest stories that I ever remember, in my lifetime, is John Walsh of America's Most Wanted. His son was killed by a vicious pedophile, and he while it's never a positive that his son died, right, he became the probably the biggest advocate for children and changed the way the world looks at child abuse. There's laws that he brought about that protect children. Somebody said it is probably, we can't count it, but there's probably no one that has had more of an impact in protecting children from abuse than John Walsh in history.
Wow.
That's an amazing statement to make.
Yeah, it is.
And that came after just a horrendous loss for him. So there's this resilience that's attached to that. Yes, that John was buried by what happened, but he grew. He was a seed. He took that and directed it in the most helpful way that he could. Life will do that to you. Everybody that's listening right now, you're not listening unless you believe there's a reason. unless you're not intrigued by this. I'm sure there's people listening that want to argue or think differently, but the truth is, internally that this stuff is talking to you. You wouldn't be we're what, 40 minutes into the podcast today. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't still be with us if you didn't feel there was something here.
Sure.
And this is the piece. And I mean, don't dare short yourself by not believing in yourself, and realize the resilience that we're talking about, the ability to be planted and then to become a seed, is in everybody that's there. There is no defeat. There is unless you allow it to be there. And you can keep doing that, or you can change your perspective over it. And that's what I've seen happen in my life. I've seen it happen in countless people's life that have turned it around and have sort of arisen from like a phoenix from the ashes. The old statement, for a phoenix to rise, it has to burn first. And this is a lot of people that can do that. For us to go down to the bottom and then come back up, or your perception from that, the bottom is a lot of times unavoidable for a lot of people. A lot of stuff happens. Yes, I can't control what happens to you, but you can control your perspective of what happened and then grow from it. That message, you can say it a million different ways, but that is the law of attraction. That's the strength of the law of attraction. It's such an exciting thing to me. I just want to, I start saying, okay, I need to calm down, Joel, because that does excite me.
I know you're excited, but that's a good thing. That's a great thing. And actually, I want to point out to our audience something they probably don't realize. You mentioned that some people might think that you're tooting your own horn or something when you talked about how you got let go from that clinic years ago, and 2 weeks later your schedule was full. But what the audience probably doesn't know is you were actually understating that, because you haven't done that once. You've done it twice.
Yes.
You also did it about a year ago, and the second time it didn't take 2 weeks. It took 48 hours. I mean, it was ridiculous how fast it filled up. So it was the exact same experience all over again, and you actually accelerated it. So once again, you took a situation that would normally be perceived as a bad situation. In both cases, you responded really well. You decided to look at it in a positive way, and you decided to feel good about it and to take steps forth and be relentless in that. And in your relentlessness, you attracted and allowed in some amazing results in a really, really short period of time, and you did it twice.
Right. And again, anytime I share these personal stories, I mean, there's always going to be criticism when people listen. As you're saying, I want to inspire other people by real events in my life. And here's what's happened. Here's how the law of attraction has worked for me. I get up every day and I live this, and I try hard to not vary from that. I'm a normal human being. I will have negative thoughts. They'll pop in my head. It isn't about not ever having a negative thought. It's about not allowing it to affect everything. It's about the moment you realize it's stepping back from it. The law of attraction isn't really responding to thoughts. It's responding to emotional vibration, to how you're feeling. The thoughts sort of dictate how you feel, and you're in charge of your thoughts will then turn it around. Sort of like the difference between excitement and anxiety. A very similar type of event as far as the body, when you're measuring the body's response, but it's how you're perceiving it. Anxiety is defeating it. Excitement gets you up every day.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing. I mean, I actually experienced that today, because I woke up this morning. I don't know if I told you. I told our listeners in the last couple of days, my wife, with her gardening business, the business has grown so much that it had gotten to the point where she just didn't feel emotionally like she could continue to manage it and stay on top of it the way it needed to be. And so she asked me to be the CEO of the company. And in fact, I told in kind of a joking way the way it came about. It was like a day or two ago. She got up early, and then she came back to bed and sat down next to me in the bed as I'm barely waking up. And she says, "Are you awake?" And I said, well, yeah, sort of. Okay. And she says, "Good. You're now the new CEO of Gardens by Louise." And I said, "I am?" It was a bit of a shock. But the point is,
wow.
Today, so of course, this morning, I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking, well, okay, now I'm the one who's responsible for, sorting out the stuff that's been going on, because on the one hand, we've been really successful this year. On the other hand, managing that success is what proved to be more than Louise felt like she could do. And So that's what I'm stepping into, which means, I mean, anytime you take over running an operation, you're not taking over running an operation that's running smooth. They don't bring you in because it's running smooth. They bring you in because something isn't working right and you got to fix it. And so, of course, that's what I'm doing this morning. I'm thinking, okay, I have some idea about what problems are. I don't actually know what all of them are yet. I have a pretty good idea of what they are, but I don't know them all, and I'm still learning them. And I got to take some really quick action. So I'm starting to map out in my head, what I have to do. And I realized I could really quickly and easily fall into the same kind of negative place that Louise had been in, because she was in a really bad place.
Right.
She was really struggling. I could very easily fall into that. And I mean, I was reaching. I was saying, no. Alignment first. I was focusing. I had my eyes closed. I was like intently staying on, I got to be in that positive place first. What feels good? What's working right? Where's the good stuff going on here? I mean, I had to really intently go after that. And that, when you mentioned the word resilience in your post, and then when you talked about relentlessness here during the podcast, that's what I thought about. Because I found, okay, right now, I got to start being relentless. And so I did.
Yes. And I'm so excited because, what you're dealing with is, again, you get to view it as, God, this is overwhelming, or I'm ready to just start swinging away. Let me start chopping wood, so to speak, and get busy, knock this stuff out. You can only do one thing at a time. Best way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time,
right? Go out there, you just go knock it out. And, I years ago, Jack Welch was the CEO of General Electric. One of the great CEOs of all time. When he left, General Electric was just considered one of the best run companies in the world. It really was.
And my dad worked for him, by the way. In fact, Jack Welch once publicly recognized the contribution my father made to the company. So yeah.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
And he left, a incredibly wealthy man, probably a billionaire because of General Electric and or because of work not because of General Electric, but what he did for General Electric. And he left it in incredible shape. Yesterday, for the first time in the history of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, General Electric was removed from the Dow Jones average.
Oh, I didn't know they'd been removed. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Their stock is at $10 or $12 a share, down lowest in many, many years. The company's falling apart.
Yeah.
And they when you took over the company from Jack Welch, whoever the CEO was that took over at that time, was blessed. He didn't have a lot to do. There's people that would love that job. I mean, all you got to do now is, that's like coaching Michael Jordan. You just sit there and say, "Yes, sir." You do what you need to do.
Well, I know a little bit about the guy. His name is Jeffrey Immelt, and there are a lot of people who would not say very nice things about him, and for good reason. He was really a disaster as a CEO. He was terrible, and he's actually he's been replaced with somebody. I don't remember what the guy's name is, like a year ago, and it'll be interesting to see what this new guy does. I have a feeling he's going to turn it around, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, I look at it as a great. If I could pick a job right now in the country that I would leave what I'm doing to, I would go be CEO of General Electric.
You really would.
I view that as I would. I was like, I viewed. You know what General Electric is, and they're looking at themselves wrong. General Electric is Berkshire Hathaway already. They don't know it, but they are basically a conglomerate. If they could get everything aligned, they're Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, which is one of the most successful. They manage a bunch of different companies. Warren Buffett. I look at General Electric as basically a diamond in the rough. If it were ran properly, it could be one of the. It is just a massive company they're not in tune. They're not aligned. They're not using the content. It's falling apart. Everything. That's the time that I would be excited. I think the best coaching job in the NFL would be the Cleveland Browns, because Cleveland Browns can go nowhere but up.
Yeah.
I look at it that way. And to me, when you get excited about that kind of thing, that's where the law of attraction can help you so much. It is the work attached. There's so much upside in taking over General Electric at $12 a share. Somebody asked me, and I don't do investment advice I have somebody managing my money, but just from an outside view, this is not a recommendation. I don't know what General Electric stock is now, $10, $11, $12. And I'm not saying it's not going to go down, but at some point, the right person is going to get in tune. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. They're going to turn that company around. It'll soar to new heights because the right person will realize the opportunity versus the challenges. And the challenges are going to be huge, Walt. It's just it's messed up on like 18 different layers.
Oh, yeah.
But look at the opportunity of that. Say it's sort of while the Garden by Louise is not quite General Electric, it is certainly something that I look at the incredible opportunity. The fact that yes, there's a lot for you to do, but the fact that you've gotten so big so fast, there's limitless growth attached to that. Once you get it humming, and you will, there's nobody better for it than you, because you have that perfect balance of what you need to be doing with that positive mindset, driving it forward. You're relentless. You're going to. I look forward to seeing in 6 months what you do with this. It is a lot to do now, but that's exciting to me.
It's exciting, and like you said, you can look at struggle a lot of different ways. I don't really see it as struggle right now. I mean, I understand what you mean about taking over the Cleveland Browns because they're at the bottom of the list, or taking over GE after they're at their lowest of lows. And you're right, that's the biggest opportunity for a huge comeback. But with Gardens by Louise, I mean, we're actually doing well in terms of the amount of business we have. We're well ahead of any other year that we've ever had. It's just a question of reorganizing it so that it'll operate in a way where everything is clicking on all cylinders instead of being run over by the amount of business coming through. So it's a different kind of thing. I actually prefer doing the Gardens by Louise. I don't really want to take over General Electric. I don't want to take on that headache. But where the struggle comes in,
agree.
Where the concept of struggle comes in for me is, I mean, I still have a little bit of a negative association with struggle. I've bought in largely to what you talk about when you say what struggle really is, and I've largely bought into your definition. But I don't really want to struggle hard. For me, I want to make it easy. And that starts with my attitude, and it starts with my belief, because especially in a company, the belief and the attitude of the CEO flows downhill. It flows through the management. It flows down to the lowest level workers. It flows through the office. It flows everywhere. And if the CEO is in a good place, mentally speaking, and is in a positive mental attitude, there's no need for struggle. Everybody can be pulling together in the same direction. The struggle often happens when there's a discrepancy in the mindset of the person who's doing the leading. That's when the struggles come about. Right.
Well, I equate it in pretty much everything in my life has some weightlifting analogy attached if I go deep enough. If you came to me and said, Joel, I would like to bench press 300 pounds. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. Now, you won't be able to do that today, more than likely. You're a tall guy, so it's a lot harder for you to do. But we can do it. And you can say, well, I don't want it to be difficult to do. It's only as difficult as you're perceiving it to be difficult. Yes. That's the answer.
Yes.
It's doable. And since it is doable, then it's your perception of the work involved. I love to work hard. I love to, I feel better when I put in a full day of work and activity. I have 18 million things going on. I love that mindset for me. It works really good. It's something that I'm actually, this shows you how bizarre I am. And on top of a full caseload and being a single parent, I'm working on a doctorate in metaphysics. That's going really well. And I'm also completing for the Amen Clinic, I'm doing a brain specialist. I want to be able to it's a sort of a brain coaching therapist class they're doing. So I'm doing all that simultaneously, and I love it. That's how my brain works. I love to do that stuff. And so people say, God, you are, most of your stuff you're putting on your plate is a choice. And I go, exactly. I like that. I perceive that as exciting. And that's where the law of attraction just sells you on, hey, it's you're viewing it. Your struggle or whatever, your challenge, whatever term you want to use is it's your perception that you're in charge of. You don't want to struggle hard. Well, it's your choice.
That's right. That's
but
exactly
you still
right.
have to do the work.
Yeah, you have to do the work.
Exciting.
It just doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy.
Right.
And that's the way I want it to be. By the way, I also want to take a moment to remind people that they don't have to struggle to find our podcasts. It's actually pretty easy. All you have to do is be a free subscriber. And the instructions on how to do that are right on the homepage at loatoday.net. Most of our listeners are subscribers. But if you're a relatively new one and have not taken on becoming a subscriber, just take a minute to do it. It's really worth it. I mean, on average, our listeners listen to 30 to 45 episodes a month, and that's both subscribers and non-subscribers combined. I can only imagine how many episodes the subscribers are listening to. It must be mind-blowing, the number. But the point is, you know, they listen for a reason. They like it. They enjoy it. They're inspired by it. I mean, how can you not listen to Joel Elston for an hour and not be inspired? I don't see any way to do that. So take a moment, go to the homepage, loatoday.net, do the free subscription. Takes about a minute, and then tell your friends about it. You're going to be very appreciative that you did it, because I'm really appreciative. I'm appreciative of what you've been talking about, and I mean, I agree with you. I agree completely. I think that one of the most exciting things is taking something and turning it around, because I turned my belief around first. And it's new for me. It's not something I've done most of my life, but now that I'm getting into it, it's like, geez, life really is good. This is where life gets fun. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Well, and you know, when I work with people on an individual basis or at a corporate level, the first thing I have to change, like, you know, I have people come in and they bring all their paperwork of all their financial stuff and all this stuff for the first meeting, and they'll pull it out and I said, look, put that away, because before we can do any of that, we got to work on your perspective. We got to work on where we're at with that. When I walk into a company, I don't look at the books the first thing. I don't look at, you know, their procedures the first thing. I look, how are we going to, you know, where are we at? I need to meet with the staff. I need to see what their perception is. I want to go to them, you know, and I ask them questions and I ask them for their opinion, and everybody has it. So when they understand I'm valuing them as the most important piece, I go to them first. And I'll tell them, because I'm coming to you first, I'm viewing you, and I say you, the staff, as the most important equation in the success of this company. Mm-hmm. Well, once I do that, they're on board. They really, wow, okay, he gets it. And then I get their opinion. Now, I don't take all their opinion. You can't, because they're almost always universally opposite. But I can see where the goal is and hear that. And they understand that I'm not listening to them. So changing the culture before you can, that fixes everything. I mean, everything else gets in line of changing the culture and the perspective. It's just what you're talking about. When you can work hard or you can work easy, and either one's the same amount of you're getting the same amount done. It's just your perspective of how you're doing it. And
exactly.
That's what helps.
Yeah, it helps a lot. It's the difference between it being fun and being a drudge. It's the difference between making it interesting and challenging and making it, oh my God, I can't get through the day.
Yes, and that's for our audience. We get such an awesome audience. I'm so grateful that people take the time to listen. I don't know where we're at in listens, but at one point we were over 50,000 listens.
Yeah, we're closing in on 55.
Yeah, and that's amazing to me. And I'm so grateful that people take the time to do that. That's why we do this every week. It's as uplifting for me as it is as I hope it is for people that are listening.
Well, it's got to be. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep listening. I mean, that's ultimately the final factor. If they're not listening, that means they're not going back and playing other podcasts and more podcasts and more podcasts. But they are. It's like, great. Yeah. This is wonderful. We know we've hit the mother lode here. It's just a question of more and more people finding out about it. And that's going to happen because we're going to attract it, which is a fabulous thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before we leave, I'm trying to make it more of a practice to do this. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how do they find Joel Elston?
My email is joelelston@gmail, and my website is joelelston.com. Those are the two simplest ways.
Very good. Excellent. Joel, it's been a pleasure. I wish it was more than once a week, but boy, I'm glad I have you at least once a week.
Always a pleasure for me as well, Walt.
We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.